States making mistakes. And one of the things that we learn is good parenting is no big secret. There have been a numbers of studies at universities, and they pretty well conclude the same thing, that there are 4 ingredients in good parenting. And you can't control what your kid's going to do. But the 4 are gentle but firm, with unconditional love, and no favorites. And that's basically it. And there were some great parents. The Garfields are great parents. Every one of their kids are successful. And Rutherford B. Hayes and Lucy Hayes were great parents. Every one of their kids is successful in different areas, different vocations, and every one of them turns out just great. George and Barbara Bush are very successful parents. In fact, I sat down with G.W., and I have a tape recording of an interview with him when I said, "What's your parenting, the parenting philosophy of your mom and pop?" And he laid out this University of Minnesota study point by point, and the study was published 2 years later, so I know that he hadn't read it. But either by accident or design or luck, or the Bushes did a good job with their kids. What happened, the recent elections of 2 Bushes to the governorships, is an extraordinary event in American history. Many of us will say, well, they've got name recognition and they got money, they ought to win, what's the big deal? But Stevenson ran in Illinois and couldn't win as a governor. Humphrey ran in Minnesota. It was the only state that Walter Mondale carried against Ronald Reagan. He should win it. He lost it to an independent. A Taft ran in Ohio and couldn't win and lost. Kennedy was putting together his campaign in Massachusetts, and because of some controversies and fluctuations in the polls, he backed down from a race. Another Kennedy, Kathleen Townsend, Kennedy Townsend, ran just recently near us in Maryland, where Democrats, registered Democrats, outnumber Republicans 2-1 and lost. So whether the child's been the child of a Republican or a Democrat, and no matter how much name recognition they had, no child of a president ever was elected governor of a state, or child of a vice president, or a presidential nominee, until 2 Bushes ended up winning. So it is an extraordinary event, historically. Yes, yes. But he's not the son of the president. Charlie Taft was the one that ran for governor and lost. Here are some letters from Thomas Jefferson that I thought were fascinating. Jefferson wrote Patsy a letter, and he says, and the letter's in the book, he says, "Here is a list of things you can do to earn my love." Now, when I read that, I thought, boy, I got no hope. I mean, Thomas Jefferson's got to be one of the smartest presidents we ever had, and if he can't see it, what kind of dad could I possibly be, as smart as he is? And T.R., if there was a second most brilliant president, many would say that Teddy Roosevelt was. And Teddy Roosevelt openly favored T.R. Jr., and he wrote him letters telling him so. So I quickly, from a personal standpoint, I did the book, it was history, but from a personal standpoint, I soaked up as much information I could as how to be a good dad, and my wife how to be a good mom, and what we could do. What was interesting is a lot of these kids triumphed anyway when the parent did everything wrong. I think Richard Taylor was a great example of that. Richard Taylor's dad, Zachary Taylor, the president, said, "I hardly know my children nor they know me." And he didn't have him around when he was president of the United States. He didn't want his son in Washington, didn't want him in the city. So he didn't share any of the glory with him either. If any child was abandoned in their life, Zachary Taylor's son, Richard Taylor, was abandoned, and he's one of the greatest of the presidential kids. He becomes one of Lee's generals and wins all these battles. He's the guy that taught Stonewall Jackson how to teach his troops how to march. And of course, we got that movie coming out in a few days. So.